Delivered to us this morning is this glorious, quite low mileage, 60,000 mile E60 M5. And what I'm really hoping that this short film that I really want you guys to watch carefully will highlight just how important it is to get these cars that we think are still a modern performance car on a ramp, properly inspected, and the all-important preventive maintenance done. Watch carefully, I think you're going to be surprised. One of the worst parts of my job here, and something that unfortunately happens all too often, is breaking bad news. And those might be, that news might be going to a customer that's just bought a car that looks as lovely as this E60 M5 sitting here today, or it may be somebody that has owned a car for maybe 10 years and that car is going from performance car, modern performance car, into its sort of modern classic part of its life. And they've been following a service schedule written by a manufacturer for when that car was still under warranty. And they haven't been advised well and have been blissfully unaware that certain things have been festering underneath the car without being looked at closely. My word of warning I want you guys to listen to is that if we get these cars at the perfect point in their life and early enough, we can make sure that that bad news that we're breaking to a lot of E46 M3 owners, E39 M5 owners, 996 Porsche owners, 997 Porsche owners even, that their car, that, as I said, looks fantastic, actually is already at a point where it wants some quite major fabrication and welding work underneath. As I said, if we get those cars during that transition period from performance car to classic, modern classic car, we can nip that in the bud and prevent that ever happening and not have to give you those nasty bills in the future. It's really easy to be, well, slightly delusional about your car's age and also lulled into a false sense of security. And so often I hear people go, really? My car's 13 years old already? I can't believe, where have the years gone? And this M5 is the perfect example of that. I mean, we look at it as a modern E60 M5, but actually it is 13 years old. And this car is at the perfect point in its life that if we get it now, we can stop those nasty surprises. But it needs nipping in the bud now. So the first part of this preventive maintenance, this is so important preventive maintenance to make sure in a decade's time we're not giving you bad news, is to get the car on a ramp. And the first part is get all of these under trays off, heat shields, wheel arch liners off, exposing all aspects of the car's bodywork on the ramp. Once all of that is off, the next part is to get these cosmetic sill covers off, and you can see, although they look lovely, you know, they do cause untold problems, and you will see up in there all that packed mud which just acts as a sponge and stays damp for days on end, you know, festering under there. So we've got to get those sill covers off and get clean behind there as well. Now it's the cleaning part, and you'll see here it's a case of scrubbing the underside of this car with an inch of its life, exposing every single area. And you can see here how lucky this owner is that we really have caught this in time. And you can just see here the very early stages of this product that's 13 years old, going brittle and splitting. There's no serious corrosion here at all. Another 2 years' time it would be a different story, but now we can attend to these very small areas of surface corrosion and stop those developing into more major corrosion over the next couple of years. He really has caught this car in time. You can see with the wheel arch liner out of this E60 M5 what a great opportunity it is to do this preventive maintenance and ensure this car over the next decade is properly protected. And that will start, as I've already mentioned, with the clean-up process and getting rid of all this, you know, 13 years of road grime and mud that was hidden behind those wheel arch liners, exposing these tiny little areas of surface corrosion which can be so easily nipped in the bud now to ensure this never ever becomes a rusty classic car. So the M5 has come back down, and as you can see, before it went up for washing, the cosmetic seal covers came off, as well as those wheel arch liners and splash shields that you've already seen on the floor behind me. And now this whole shell has been washed with an inch of a life underneath, and you can see it's absolutely immaculate under here, which enables us to have a really, really close inspection of this bodywork to ensure that we find every minute little small area of surface corrosion, so we know exactly what we're going to be dealing with as part of the future proofing of this shell and the long-term preservation. But you can see how well it's cleaned up, ready for inspection now. Following discussions on Saturday with the owner of this M5, who has made it very clear he wants to take a very, very long-term view. He adores the car and wants to keep it for certainly a decade, maybe even 15 years. So it was decided to remove the rear subframe, and it will enable us clearance and access to make the best possible job of preventive maintenance that we can. And you will see here it means we can get to everything because everything is exposed, and you can see here above the rear subframe mounts we can get to that, these areas of ginger surface rust here, which would be almost impossible to get to properly because that has got to go back to bare metal to ensure it's stopped. You see there's a little blister there. That would have been directly above the rear subframe and therefore impossible to get to. You can see here above that rear subframe bush the product coming off there, and it just means proper access, and we can make a fantastic job to ensure that this M5 passes from, well, being a performance car to a modern classic and ultimately a classic car without ever having to have any major structural welding. Once the very hard work and unpleasant job of stripping all the original BMW product off, you can see the results here, and the need to get everything back to this lovely shiny steel again, back to bare metal. Once everything went back to bare metal, your next step is to obviously get a new coat of fresh primer under here, as you can see. And then, once that primer is applied, the most important part is to re-seam seal all of these joints. So all the black areas you see under here are seam sealer. Everywhere where there's a double skin joint, anywhere where water might be able to penetrate between the layers of steel, those joints are seam sealed to keep any moisture out. And you'll notice that actually we make rather a more thorough and better job of seam sealing these joints than was made by BMW in the factory when this car was new. So as you can see, Steve's been exceptionally busy under this E60 M5 for the last couple of days, and you saw it in bare metal where it was necessary to go back to bare metal to eliminate any of those minute bits of surface corrosion. And once that was done, you now see this finished M5 body shell ready for clear cavity wax protection, which will go into all the cavities through the holes like that, and all the holes in the sills, etc., and obviously applied to all the double skin joints, all the vulnerable areas. But you can see we are now finished under here, and even this dusting of blue at the very end is to mimic the factory finish as this car would have come out the factory. We do not want anybody to ever know anybody's ever been under here, so it has to look factory fresh and factory original. And once back to bare metal, it was then primed, all the joints re-seam sealed, and acrylic body paint applied, sympathetic coatings of factory stone chip, that's that textured rubberized protective underbody stone chip applied, and then the blue. cavity wax being injected, this will be done to the whole, all the sills and all the box sections of this car. A nice thin layer of clear protective cavity wax. Now this M5 shell is protected long term with its final coat of clear cavity wax and all cavities injected. Looks absolutely fabulous under here, and it's great to know that this M5 is protected really properly and thoroughly long term. So we're on the very end of this project now, and that's the long-term preservation of this M5, and all the sills have been injected with cavity wax, and you can see how lovely this car's looking, and it's just, you know, in the final assembly stages now. Rear suspension back in the car, obviously that will have four-wheel alignment because it's been out, exhaust to go on last thing today, and obviously not just has the bodywork been protected, but attention has been paid to all the brake pipes, fuel pipes, oil cooler pipes, power steering pipes to ensure they are protected long term. Also, you can see that cavity wax injected up into all those cavities in the inner front wings, bottom of the A-pillars, etc. The structure really well protected, and yeah, we are finished. Well, I hope now you've watched that, you all understand just how important preventive maintenance is to these cars that are in that transition period from performance car to modern classic and ultimately ending up a classic. And this guy's picking this up on Saturday, and what's great for him, he's taking a very long-term view to this car, and he now knows categorically that he's not going to have those massive restoration, welding, fabrication bills ahead when this car becomes a true classic. It's great to have worked for him and done such a thorough job, and know this car is saved.